I'm sorry about starting this meeting late. That just went over a little bit. Let's go ahead and call the Parks and Recreation Committee to order. I'll call roll. Landon Gully, Beverly Atwood, Shane Burton, Gary Clarity, Dwight Jewell, Richard Johnson not here, Rachel Jones not here, Lonnie Taylor. I don't see him. So I mean, we got one, two, I believe we got enough for a quorum. If you would review the minutes from the past meeting, if there's any additions, corrections, if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Motion approved. I have a second. We have a misspelling, you say? I will get that straight. I have a motion. I have a second. Mr. Clarity, all in favor, say aye. Ms. Beverly, you get the misspelling straightened out. All right, next on our agenda is discussion items. First one on that is the Trade Park Playground ground covering. This has been a big discussion for the past month. So, Mr. Mayor, I turn it over to you on this.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. When we put in our LPRF grant for the ADA improvements over at the Trade Park, TDEC came down, did an inspection of the park, and they noticed several safety issues. Particularly, the one they wanted to address most was a safety surfacing throughout the remainder of the park that's not included in the project area. That is what was, I talked to an engineering firm at the time. They recommended engineered wood fiber. Commission wanted to look at rubber. I think Mr. Gully has got some quotes on different rubber mulch, and I've got one in here as well. Came in pretty close. The quote I got, I will go ahead and say it is for recycled tire. And it is black. That's something, a question Mr. Gully had asked me, I believe last week or earlier this week. So that quote is for that recycled tire, and it is black. So if there's a question on that, I'll go ahead and address that up front. But Mr. Gully, you want me to turn it over? You got these quotes for AAA and the Jelly Bean. You want me to turn that over to you to discuss that, or?
That's good with you.
Okay. Well, you know more. You got these quotes, and the two at the end are the ones I got, so I can cover those.
Might just speak on the same piece that the mayor said there. If you look here, the one on your front on that outline that Miss Amy or the mayor did for us very well, page 5, page 6, and page 11, as he was just saying, those are all rubber mulch that are recycled tire. That's what each of those quotes are from. The only difference in page 5 and page 6 is whether or not you get black regular rubber, just like it came from your tire. It's been chipped up. They've taken the wire out of them, is what they call it. 99.9% wire free is what it's called. At that point, the only difference in those two prices, as you see about 21 grand there in price difference on page 5 to page 6, is the difference in painted versus just black rubber mulch. That's the difference in those two prices right there, as you might see on 5 and 6. So in other words, the one in number 5 on page 5 is for painted mulch. It says blue. That company and I had talked. It's not just necessarily all blue. They said they could do. There was about 4 or 5 different colors they would do. They're more earthy tone colors in that case, and you could mix them up is what that was for. The only purpose in that, in their conversation, was heat. That might be, you touch a tire in the summertime, you sometimes feel you get a little heat off of it. I did do a little bit more discussion on that conversation, and I don't know if you've been to our elementary school, but the page 6 and the page 11, the same one the mayor's got. Mine here are very, very similar in cost. Where we go with those, they're going to be very similar in cost. You see the 75 and the 83. Well, the 75 is yes, but you've still got to add the 52 or 5,500 for the borders there in this case. So it's pretty much the same price if you look at that piece. So as we're looking at those, that rubber tire piece, the elementary school has exactly what we're seeing right there. If you want to go see what this looks like, the elementary school has exactly what we're seeing there. I've talked a little bit there in that discussion with them. School starts in July, and they're not having an issue with playing kids on the playground in July with that. You know what I'm saying? In other words, July and August, late July and August, which is your hot time that you're talking about, they're not seeing an issue in that case, is what I've heard. Now, Just saying, I'm just adding that piece. It doesn't sound like they've had any issue. It's been down about 4 years. Kids have shoes on. But they're still falling on it. They're still down in it, things of that nature. That's a thought. The only other one that's really different here in this piece is the Jelly Bean. You'll see that one coming in at like 94.8. Jelly Bean is a company out of New Orleans. That's correct. And that company produces their quote there. In this case, it's all, when it says jelly bean, if you look at a bag of jelly beans, it's going to be different colors, right? If you think about it that way, it is all colored mulch. But what theirs is, and the main difference in theirs is that it is not recycled tire. It is a rubber. It's actually from rubber flooring, is what it's come from. It's chipped up rubber flooring. It's not reused. It's not recycled at all. It is actually new product that's been ran. It's just the trimmings that were shaved up, is what that is, or as you might call it, chip, like running it through a chipper there in this case. So those are the only real differences you might see in these. I've talked with those people a lot. Of course, Jelly Bean's going to tell you, hey, I'm not providing you something that's recycled tire. Their piece and one of his sell pieces, the guy's very nice. John's his name. He's called a few times. It's a two-man company, just to be honest with you. They do some, his turnaround was about the same as the others. One of the big selling factors that he wanted to sell. And if you remember Parks and Rec, 2 years ago, 2019 range, you'll remember that Mr. John Parker he actually brought in Jelly Bean mulch, and he brought in a sample of Jelly Bean mulch to this committee about 2 years ago. It's exactly what he brought in. And his reasoning was he'd seen the difference between tire mulch and the difference between the Jelly Bean mulch, which was not a recycled tire. 99.9% wire-free is 99.9% wire-free, meaning there's going to be 0.1% of wire. Well, you think about it, what's 10% of 2,000 pounds, a ton, right? What's 10% of 2,000 pounds? It's 200 pounds. What's 1% of that's 20 pounds. Well, 10% of that's going to be 2 pounds. So 2 pounds per every ton. We're looking at about 400 tons to cover this. That's what we're talking about. So everybody gets an idea there in this case. That was the big selling point of Jelly Bean on that case that they were trying to sell. Jelly Beans is painted. It's a 20-year warranty, as you see through that warranty piece. According to Jelly Bean, and I've tried to look through their specs, they have the highest fall rating. Theirs is rated at a 17-foot fall, is what he claimed, on a 4 inches depth. We're going to 6 inches depth because it's a little spongier material. It's not recycled tires, what he put it there for in this case. It has a 20-year warranty. Both of these had, the black mulch has a 20-year warranty as well, I think. The painted mulch did not have, I think it was a 10-year on the paint. In other words, that the paint might wash off a little bit. I believe it was 10. I've talked to those guys a couple of times. But that's kind of the intro. Here it is. You might see in that first page there, what I did is just took Google Earth and kind of gave you some square footage options. If you go down there to the park, you can see on page 2, there is a pretty much, it's not exact, don't get me wrong, but a pretty close estimate to the area that we're talking about, the whole area that will be left after going in and putting in the piece that the grant's already been approved for. There's the area, and then the one below it gives you the square foot around it. Or I mean, the area is your square footage, and then the one below gives you your linear feet around, which is where that $5,000 page 8 and page 9 came from. The only difference is you see in page 8 and page 9 is 12 foot to 8 inch tall, 12 inches or 8 inches tall border, which is pretty much the same. I think the mayor's quote was the same. It was with 12-inch borders, if I'm not mistaken. I read that one.
Yeah, for the engineered wood fiber, it would have to be 9 inches thick, so there's a 12-inch border. If you go with rubber mulch, I believe it only has to be 6 inches thick, and so you get an 8-inch border. So there's a difference in some prices there in regards to the border and the rubber mulch. But as he said, if you go on page 10, there's the quote for the engineered wood fiber with the borders included. So it's 56,615 project total. And then on page 11, that would be for the rubber mulch, which is kind of comparable to the AAA quotes and things that Commissioner Gully had talked about a little bit earlier. On here, they've got 12-inch borders with spikes, but in talking to them, you could go down to an 8-inch on that. They just went ahead and quoted the 12 because they said that's a little bit higher price. If you go to 8, it's going to come down. So they went ahead and included the 12, knowing that if you go with the rubber mulch, you don't have to have the 12-inch. It'll actually come down a little bit. But again, it's within, well, about $3,000 of the quote Commissioner Gully got. And there is a chance, and these are just out quotes. this group, Recreational Concepts I went with, it's just what the quote they put together. There is a possibility if we go through a purchasing cooperative, which we're part of 3 of them, we may be able to find comparable rubber mulch that might be a little bit cheaper under the purchasing cooperative.
Mr.
On
Chairman.
the border side there, the border 12 or 8 inch really didn't make it wasn't a big difference. If you look at the cost on page 7 and page 8, you're talking $300. In that case there, you're really looking at $300 on the difference in going to 12-inch to 8-inch. He was asking that question about, can we go to the 8? Now I'd asked the mayor, and I don't know if he's checked, there may be a chance with the Jelly Bean that we can go to 4 inches. The Jelly Bean sales rep, John, continues to tell me that, man, our stuff doesn't have to be 6 inches deep. And I know, I think commercial wise in the place we're in, we need to be looking at 6 inch. He says his company, and I sent the test ratings to the mayor, he's going to take that and look further if that may be the case. That could definitely be a cost savings that we're looking at. I'm not going to kid you, the guy, he's worked with us. He's definitely came in. He came in at 115,000 for the first one. I was like, man, I don't think it's going to make it at 115. You're going to have to give me your best quote. He came back with that $94,800 shipped to us there in this case at that piece. And he was only able to do that because he had a part of his contract to a company in Georgia instead of it coming out of Louisiana. He was going to bring all this out of a Georgia plant. That's what he was doing there in this case. It saved him on shipping. As you can see, the shipping costs are outrageous. I mean, they're 20 grand on each of these pretty much. Roughly $20,000 on every one of these is shipping.
Yeah, and that kind of blew my mind when I talked to engineers, and they were like, some of them were 20,000, some of them were 25,000 for the shipping. I really couldn't believe that. But and as far as the tech data and specifications you sent me, I did forward that on to TDEC because they have to approve of whatever we're going to use. Haven't heard back from them yet. I sent it to them yesterday. They told me they would review it, and then going to set up a call with myself, the grant person at TDEC we've been dealing with, and one of his higher ups. They want to discuss it with me. Haven't had a chance to talk to them. Don't have a firm time when that's going to be done, but hopefully it'll be sometime in the next couple of weeks.
When we speak on that shipping, I actually, took the time to, Mark White, who has been a member here of the commission in the past. They run a trucking company, Old Time Express up here. I called Mark and just said, hey man, what's shipping look like? If you had a truck that it's an in-town place, and I just was wondering what would shipping, could we save on shipping? And literally he said, man, shipping costs right now are outrageous. He said, I think you're gonna, the ballpark's gonna be the same ballpark that we're playing in there in this case. So it wasn't gonna be a shipping change. So it just seems like the cost right now for shipping are very high.
And
Yes, if we'll look back on page 5 and page 6, for the colored out of AAA, we'll be able to take that $8,000 off that price because they've got taxes added in it. Same thing on page 6, they've got $6,000 tax added in that. So we can, on the color, we're down to 88,000, and then you're down to 71,000, or 79, 69, somewhere along in there.
I had asked that question, but the guy wasn't able to quote it to me at that point without anything different.
Yeah,
I thought it would be the case that we could get it tax-free.
Either one of those tax dollars are coming off. So if we go with the color out of AAA, we're down to $88,000. I mean, it's just something that's that much difference in them. I mean, that's saving money on it, but taking the taxes off of it.
I have a question. Can the installation, does that price that they're all quoting us on installation, is that site prep as well? Or are they coming in there and taking all the grass up, putting down new barriers, or is that strictly for bringing their mulch in and spreading it? My second question along with that is this something we can do ourselves as far as the installation, pull together a myriad of volunteers and our own employees, and see if we can't, we could save substantially if we weren't having to pay for the installation. I know, I can't speak for the Rotary Club, but we've always taken care of it in times past. And I can't imagine that we wouldn't take it on as far as a work day trying to help. We helped build the thing, we helped maintain it for a lot of years. So I feel like that, I would feel safe in saying that they would be involved in doing something like that. Some of the other groups, some of the church groups, some of the football team, I don't know. You know, I think that this is a type of project that people will rise to the situation and come out and help with installation of it. If it's the type of thing that it's just labor, if it's specialized equipment to do it or something like that, then we might not be able to pull that off. I don't know, just a thought.
I will say on one of them I looked at, and I can't remember exactly if it's this one or not. It may have been the Jelly Bean. I can't remember. Talked about before you install it, you have to have level ground. So that's a little bit of a hill. We may have to live that up a little bit, but in talking recreational concepts, they were very open to working with the community. If we could get something to help decrease the cost, they were more than willing to help listen to it and help us in any way they could.
Mr. Chairman, looking at the proposal from recreational, they've got the equipment and installation in with their price.
I was fixing to mention that piece here in this case. I don't know what they're mentioning by equipment and installation there, because if that's the case, that's quite a bit cheaper. You know, the other one required us unloading our own equipment, our own.
Right.
They come in 2,000-pound bags. You've probably seen our sandbags laying on equipment at a construction site. Usually see that pretty regular, those 2,000-ton sacks. That's what they would come in as. So I'm not sure I saw the same piece there on the recreation
Yeah, it's got the
connections.
We had
And
those
again-
large type bags down at the multipurpose building of the powdered rubber that goes in there, and they're like a big round bag with handles on it that you can pick up with a forklift or tractor boom or something of that nature. I don't know that this is shipped that same way, but I would imagine it's probably something similar to that. So as far as when you get a truck here, you're just gonna have to set it off down there and possibly have something that you could move it around a little closer. I think there again, forklifts across the street, literally, I think would be able to use. I can't speak for them, but I can't imagine them not being willing to help us with it. And if they won't, we can find somebody that will.
And like I said, in talking with them, I think as long as we can show them we've got the equipment and the manpower to do it, they were willing to work with us. They said they work with, communities all over the place to try to structure it so they can do it. So again, they gave us this quote and that did include the installation. So this is the quote they gave us. They don't see it going any higher. It can only come down. And I will also say in the future, and I do want to bring to the committee installing more accessible play equipment out there. In the future, if you wanted to extend and put what we're doing in the front part with the artificial turf and whatnot, they said that the rubber mulch could serve as some of the fill for that as well. So you would still save that cost going forward if you ever wanted to go to that installation of the AstroTurf, so you have a harder surface. They said this could serve as some of the fill under that.
I'm just looking at the recreational. If we go with the rubber mulch from them, if you take it $22,000 off, we're down to $61,000. I think we could probably get the people in the county to work a little while and save $20,000. I'll volunteer. I'll work. I will work on it. I mean, if we can save $20,000 by doing just a little work, I don't say it's going to hurt us none.
And I will say, and I don't want to speak for AAA. I did speak for Recreational Concepts. And as I said, they said they work with civic organizations all over the place to try to get the best deal they can for them. And I don't imagine AAA, most of the ones I've dealt with that are involved in playgrounds and everything, they're very community oriented and they're willing to work with you. So I would imagine AAA and the rest of them probably work you the same thing, that if you can get some of these other costs covered to get land or manpower in the installation, I'm sure they would be willing to work with you on that as well.
Guys, y'all see one that you think it'd be most comfortable with, or any more discussion on this? Because we need to probably make some kind of decision on this, not to send to the full, I guess, to the.
Sharon. Either way, I'd rather go with the rubber mulch down over the wood chips. I mean, whatever it costs. I mean, it's gonna last, like Landon said, 15, 20 years. And then wood chips, we'd be back in there 2 or 3 years doing it again.
Yeah.
So I'd rather go with the rubber myself. And I mean, it's a little more expensive, but it's gonna last 10 times longer.
And I do appreciate the mayor and Mr. Gully getting all this together for us. I mean, that's a lot of work they've done here, and I mean, they give us something to look at. And we've had discussion on it. Does anybody want to make a motion to go with one of these?
You know, I might make mention also, even if we went with one of these and went with one of these routes that we're talking about looking, if you look at like page 3, for example, on this packet, that would be looking at maybe the option of extending in the future what we're looking at doing right now. That's one reason I put that one in there. You know, if you think about the difference between page 2 and page 3 there on that top picture in both of those, that thought of mine and the reason I had built that diagram for us was to think, well, if we're just extending, maybe we could extend around that front area there to continue with that same the surfacing that we're looking at doing with the improvements now for ADHD compliant equipment as well. That might be an area you could just extend right on into. And that's one reason I had left that off. You see there, that takes us down to like 13,000 square feet from 22,000, nearly 23,000 square feet or whatever it was. So that's a large change that you might could even do. Now, don't get me wrong. I guess it really takes us to about 17,000 square feet when you add page 4's part to it there that covers those swings in the back. But just was, you know, there's options. I guess is what I'm saying when we move into this piece, whether we're going to do that entire area that we've got, or we might cut off some areas that we might leave in grass or something of that nature that we're going to extend to in the future, if that's an option with what we're looking at with these grants.
Well, in talking to TDEC, and again, you know, I mentioned extending what we're doing in the front part for this project through the LPRF throughout the entirety of it. And TDEC was very receptive to that because they like the harder surface for mobility issues and whatnot. So, but it was going to be done in phases, obviously. And I've been sent some grants through private organization as well. But so that's a discussion. As I said, I wanted to bring back to the committee in the future, looking at these future phases as far as what kind of play equipment you want to use and that kind of stuff going forward.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to ask the members of the committee, I would rather see some colors in it than just to put the black out there. I mean, it's going to be a little more expensive, but it's going to make the playground look a lot better and more attractive to everybody. I'd just like to see the colors in, and then they're guaranteed, what'd you say, like 10 years on the color?
The one from AAA State of Play had a 10-year warranty, if I'm not mistaken. The one from Jelly Bean had a 20-year warranty. It's a dyed color, not a painted color. On the difference, this is the difference there. And I'm sure Recreational Concepts likely has some type of painted as well. Now, up front, the reason I went with looking at that painted, don't get me wrong, I think it would look better in our park. When you go out there and look at the elementary school, you'll see exactly what you're going to see at that cost. My initial worry on the black was heat. But in talking to the elementary school, they haven't had any issues with heat. So therefore that I was fine with that piece. So I don't disagree with you a bit. I think the color would be a definite nice attraction there in that piece there in this case. And when you talk about that color, you can talk about mixing. The jelly beans don't look like a bag of jelly beans kind of thing. Earthy tones, not real bright tones, don't get me wrong. But the other, you could really mix it with whatever colors you wanted to add. Pretty much, they had them from reds, blues, greens, that kind of thing. So it's definitely an option to look at. It's painted, so that's a thought process on that one. If you're going with a color, color for 10 years. Their black was warranted for 20 years as well. So there's the difference in that piece.
I mean, worse. Just seems logical. I'm very much in favor of doing rubber, which one, not as have hard and fast feelings on it, but I have shoveled wood chips down there for the last 20 years and I don't relish doing it again, but I would. But I don't like the idea of how many times we've had to do it and how much money we've spent. We've probably spent this amount of money several times over. I think we do need to go with the rubber. Now, which rubber, what color, I'm okay, whatever the committee wants to decide.
I think we all in favor of the rubber mulch, the way it seems, like we need to, I mean, I keep hearing Mr. Burton say jelly bean. I sit there, do you want me?
Say we shoot the water for 20 years, go from jelly bean.
I just, you know,
I might mention on that case myself, even I'm 100% in agreement that we need to go with that rubber. I do think we ought to look as well with the borders that we're talking about, a full perimeter border and some additional borders throughout the piece to keep it from washing as far, kind of like if you think about when you see an area that's building, you'll see that little red, that little orange fence, it's for wash areas. You're putting a few of those along the way in the park there. In my opinion, we need to look at that as well. That's very cheap. It's
Check dams, it keeps that water from, it slows it down, so it's not going to carry anything as quickly. Plus it contains it there again. If you need to add more, you've got a little bit of a boundary there. The difference in the cost, I do think from what I read about this, the jelly bean would be the superior product as far as, but I don't know that it's worth the difference in cost. I just don't know.
I'd agree 100%. I believe it is a superior product. But as I look at this piece, I really think this Recreational Concepts, I'd like to know what Recreational Concepts would do with us. If they kick that $22,555 out of this thing for installation, then we're talking about a $60,000 cost right here. And that is, in my opinion, a very good opportunity there. We might be looking at 65,000 with some additional borders that we're talking about in there. But that is
I'm going to say the Recreational Concepts one, the border should circle the entire, everything except for the LPRF grant project area. It should encompass everything.
Yeah, that's the same as that 5,000 I'd done of mine, but that's what I'm saying. We might need to add an extra 5,000 to add some additional borders to, well, I shouldn't say borders, but maybe some additional, as we're talking, if you think about where the park is, it kind of lays that it flows off down towards that creek right there. So if you did some quick, maybe 2 through it, that cut it up a little bit to slow the water down through those areas, just with those same borders as I'm talking about. We ain't talking about adding a lot of money is what I'm saying in this case. If you think Recreational Concepts would be able to, I'd be interested in seeing what they propose back to us in terms of that equipment and installation.
Yeah, and they have an engineering arm as well, so they don't just provide this. They'll actually come in and engineer it for you, and they're pretty much a one-stop shop. And they even manufacture their own play equipment.
So this cost right here would be them walking in here and us never touching it.
Yes.
So you don't think we can take the labor out of it?
Oh, you can, and that's why I said they'll work with you.
Oh, okay.
If you can do it yourself, they're willing to work with you. They just said,
Okay.
for us to come in, one stop, we're gonna do it all, here's what the cost is. But
Right.
as I said, they work with communities all over, and they're willing to work with any civic organizations. If you can, they'll show you, here's how it should be installed. If you can do that and they're comfortable with it, I don't think they'll have any problem letting you do that in my discussions with them.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, do they have color? Or did they say?
Yes, sir. They should have colors. Most of the ones I've seen, your basic black is kind of what's there, and they do have different colors.
Do they have purple and gold?
Oh, no way, no way.
We ain't putting blue and red in it. Yeah,
I really think gold would be pretty, seriously.
I only laughed because I looked at the same thing through AAA State of Play and they did not have purple and gold. I'm sorry.
I'm ready to make a motion to go with recreational if they've got the colors at this price.
In your motion, I'd be willing to second your motion if are you saying at the price with the equipment installation as it is?
No.
Or if we can get that,
If we can get
Work
their
with-
equipment installation out down to $61,000, go with them with the color.
and color.
I make a motion to go with recreational with the equipment installation removed and get it in color. Not black.
What's the color price?
Um,
What's the color price of $106,000?
my discussion there on that piece would be, we don't know the price of color. We saw $20,000 being the difference in AAA State of Play.
Right.
It was $20,000 difference.
And I would also point out that when we finish with the LPRF grant, TDEC's gonna come and look and see if we've done this. If you don't approve it at a higher amount, like if you approved it for this price right here, we're gonna try to work with them to get it down with various labor, anything like that. So just because you've approved that, don't mean that's what's gonna be spent, but we have to have this installed or else TDEC is not gonna be very happy with us.
How long do we have on that installation? Because the ones I had gotten were within 2 months. I mean, Jelly Bean said he could have the stuff sitting here delivered to us by mid-November. So I mean, we're not talking about a long time out. It was the same way with recreational concepts.
I think they've got in here, it says lead time 6 to 8 weeks.
You got a motion on the floor. Mr. Clarity, would you state your motion again for? I didn't have a second yet.
So go with recreational concepts with colored mulch, wood chips. I'm not wood chips, but the rubber fiber. At the price with their equipment installation removed, if we can get it at that.
No.
I've got a motion. Y'all have heard it. He's stated it twice. Any more discussion on that? Do I have a second?
I've got discussion on it, Mr. Chair. I need the mayor to give me a price on this rubber mulch first. On a color, yes.
I'll have to go back with them and ask for a price then. Do you have a specific color in mind? Because I don't know if a specific color makes a difference or not.
If you could get it with the multicolor or just a straight color.
Most of the ones I've seen, it comes like in one color batch, but I mean, I could be wrong. They could be able to mix it together.
So what I had seen on the Jelly Bean, just on the, not Jelly Bean, but on the AAA State of Play with that same idea, was you would buy, let's say if you're buying 161 sacks of the 2,000 pound mulch, or 170 sacks is pretty much what yours is. You're buying, dividing that by 4, let's say, or something like that. And you're going to put in, roughly X amount of red, X amount of green, X amount of blue, X amount of, and you'd be doing your mixing on your own. I think you would mix it as you're putting it in.
That would get into more than you would ever believe, trying to mix that stuff.
I'm not sure. I know it comes, the bags you described, that's how it's described to me. It comes in that. So I think it's one color is in that bag and another. If you wanted to get something else, it'd be in another one.
Let's just go with the color.
Question, Mr. Gully was talking about sectioning off different sizes for this playground. Could not one size be one color, one size be another color?
If you are sectioning off with the borders and you actually divide them, you could do that. But most of the proposals, and I think looking at what Mr. Gully had and one I've got, they pretty much encircled the entire thing, and that's what you would fill in. But if they came and looked at it and there was enough room to meet playground safety standards and you could cordon off pieces of equipment, you could probably do that.
Mr. Chairman, I'll withdraw my motion till we can get a price on the color from Recreation.
Well, I think we could safely say that that's the direction that we want to go. We just need to try to get a number as to what it's going to cost. You might talk to them about different colors. Can they mix it, or would they even recommend doing that? I think the other thing that you might want to look at is what colors will, I asked them if there's certain colors that would maintain their vibrancy of colors. I mean, if you get something in there and it gets weathered or it gets a little, I hate to use the word mold, but, you know, discolored, some would show that more than others. Probably a lighter colored mulch or color would show things like that more so than the darker ones would. But I'm just kind of thinking out loud right now. And I'll shut up.
Just make sure I got all the questions I got. Can the colors be mixed? Are there colors which will last longer? I'm just going to ask them to quote every color they can get. Just give me a quote on all of them. Is there any other questions I need to ask them or anything else you want to be addressed?
I do know all these borders are black. I don't think they come in different colors. So a darker color of the borders wouldn't stand out quite as much if you had cross borders in there.
So can you do this in a time frame you need to do it in and get back with us? I mean,
If you do it a month out, I should be able to get it because they got this to me within a couple of weeks. And they've already got, and we had to work with them on trying to get the measurements and all that kind of stuff. So now that they've got it, they should be able to turn it around a little bit quicker.
So is our committee is recommending him get that with the color and get back with us when we schedule a meeting for next month. Does that sound okay?
Yes, sir. I'll reach out. I'll put together an email to them tomorrow morning and send it to them and get them working on it and see if they can give me an estimate of how long they think it'll take.
Okay, we'll do that and we'll try to come up with a good meeting date here, here in a few minutes. Let's move on to B under discussion items, Little League ball fields. I was thinking we're talking about the poles and all the light poles and all. We've been discussing this for a year or two now. We need to come to a solution for this too. So floor is open for discussion.
I'd mentioned this to the mayor as well. I tried to work with our Little League, and don't get me wrong, when I say tried, they worked with us. They were trying to work with us as well as they could. Our Little League, what we were talking about here is we had asked our Little League to sign a form stating that it was okay if we moved ahead with wood poles. Our Little League president at the time there in this case went and ran that through the chain and took it to her next level. And her next level there in Portland. And they took about a week or maybe a week and a half to really hash out some things and go through and took it on up to their chain, I guess is what I'm saying. It went through the chain of command there of the pieces. And they were informed that they really did not need to sign anything. They needed to stay out of this, is what they were informed. Didn't need to be part of their decision on whether we were moving to wood poles or not going to go to wood poles. And I mentioned this to the mayor here a couple of weeks ago in the facet of this. We're working on Trousdale County City Park. Little League's going to use it from time to time, but we're working on Charles County City Park. It's not the only people, it's not only Little League that uses it. Our youth football uses it for practice. I think right now there's a softball league playing down here every maybe Tuesday night and Thursday night, I think. So I'm not trying to leave Little League out. I don't want them to feel that way, but Little League was informed they didn't need to get involved is what they were informed. In terms of the wood poles is what they were involved in this case. I would make a suggestion that we move forward with looking at putting this into the wood poles and going with the lights that are the main thing we've learned about the lighting piece. We know there's poles that's got to be changed, plain and simple. That we move into an LED lighting system there in this case, if we can get those quotes on those pieces with the wood poles and the LED lighting system. Now we're going to have to get some quotes, is what we're going to have to get together for that part. That's going to take a little bit of time, but I would definitely like to see this committee move in that direction, that we try to find those quotes and move that to our committee in the future. Mayor, you may know, I think there's about 98,000 left in that grant that's urban services side of that grant.
I think it's more now. I think it's like 100 and I'd have to go back and look. Amy handed it out. I don't remember exactly how much. And I would say that the 273 hasn't been spent yet. It's been budgeted, but I can't remember the amount to bring it down to right off the top of my head.
I'm thinking 20,000 was budgeted and there's 98,000 left in that piece. 20,000 was budgeted towards poles. And there's an additional, I've got it right here in my packet. It's and 98,000 still left in that. So that roughly puts us there in this case at $118,000 that are available in that grant still to us to look at this piece. I think that's our best route. We don't want to try to get Little League in trouble. Actually, they were told that a Little League district that got involved in this same try to move everybody was trying to do in the right direction. Don't get me wrong, but the whole Little League got dissolved because it got into a difficult situation there when they signed some paperwork and went that route. So I say we move as Trousdale County City Park and we look at lighting all 4 of those fields properly with poles, replacing those poles that definitely need to be replaced and replacing the lighting with LED lighting. One major thing about LED, Mr. Salee has said to us, is he is out of room down there with power. And that LED would change his power grid quite a bit. We know that. I would say it would change our cost as well down the road as we look into that piece. That's definitely a route I'd like to see us do. If I need to put that in the form of a motion that we get quotes for wood poles or things like that, I certainly will in a minute. We'll leave that back to the floor though.
Mr. Chairman, I have spoken with Tri-County. They're gonna come down and look at the poles and see how they can help us on them. They were gonna see if they could buy the poles and we buy them from them or how they would do it. But they didn't make it today, maybe tomorrow or first of next week or something. They're gonna come down and look at all of them and see what they can help us with.
So they're going to look at changing poles for us and things of that nature. We'd need to look into the lighting. I think if you remember as well, Mr. Salee said there was some value in those, what they call high pressure sodium. Is that the right word for what I'm talking about here in this case? Those lights that are there now. I think they're, he said there was some value left in those lights. I think that light is, I think he even mentioned maybe somewhere of $100 range of a light might sell for that range, might not, but there might definitely be some value. I think he had mentioned that when they replaced the lighting here that the school replaced on the football field and the baseball field, they found quite a bit of value left in those lights, is what Mr. Salee had mentioned to us. So I definitely hope we move in that direction. If Tri-County's gonna work with us on the poles, I'll slow down.
The bulbs themselves. Am I remembering correctly that there were some of the wood poles that we thought were still okay if we were going to go with wood poles, that we didn't have to replace all of them? I know if we were going to metal, we were talking about replacing all of them, but I think there was some of the wood poles that they felt like were okay.
I think there's 4 Mr. Salee said need to be replaced as soon as possible. And the other ones he thought could be done in a phased approach If I remember correctly, I think that's what he said.
Okay.
So Mr. Gully, you put in a motion, to go ahead and with this, with the wood poles, and Mr. Clarity mentioned Tri-County coming down. I mean,
I was about to say wood poles and LED lights. I'd like to see our lighting change to LED lights.
No, I'll just let Mr. Slee know that Tri-County, I think he'd talked to him in the past, but I don't even know if they're gonna come out. I'd like him to be there and talk to them. So, but as far as that, the Johnson Controls had already told us, just as soon as we've made a decision on the wood versus steel, they can get us a new quote. If it doesn't include the poles, they can still give us one on the lights. And also, there's a group called PATH that works with smaller counties that had helped out Weakley County on some of their stuff. And then Train, surprisingly enough, does that as well. So if we wanted to get multiple looks at it, we could go those various ones.
I can get back in contact with border states as well and see where their cost is. I'd certainly like to give, John Edwards is his name there that looks at that piece. He's done quite a few ballparks that same way through border states. But it's in that case of things, I would also like to ask that we look at adding a pole, 2 poles actually. One for that, what we would call, what's labeled in the county as field 4 over there, which is the T-ball field, the last edition field. That field needs a pole behind the field. It only has 2 out in the outfield. It gets pretty dark in that field, as well as adding a pole there, especially as for anything of safety, but a pole there for our skate park.
I believe that was mentioned at the last committee meeting. I think there was also a request for some kind of box over by the concession stand or something, if I remember correctly. Or was that something Mr. Slee suggested need to be looked at? I can't remember exactly what it was.
If you will note, anytime it floods at that new field that was put in, if it floods, if that field gets underwater, and you've seen those fields underwater pretty regular, then the power source is actually mounted. Actually, it's lower than the fence there. If you look on that field, that power source goes underwater every single time. And that's what Mr. Slee had mentioned there in this case, that might need to be moved to a different location up above the field, if I'm not mistaken.
All right, I didn't remember exactly what, I remember there was a talk about moving some kind of box. I just didn't remember exactly what it was.
If we need to put a motion to go with LED lights and wood poles, I'd certainly put that in a motion if we need to do that. We have. Okay, that we go.
Just depends on how responsive the companies giving you a quote on the lights are.
I would second that motion.
That motion was to go with LED lights and wood poles and add at least 2 wood poles, one at the rear, at the home plate there, behind home plate of the T-ball field, which was the newest additional field there, and the other on the skate park.
I have a motion. Y'all heard the motion. I have a second by Mr. Jewell. Is there any more discussion on? Any more discussion? All in favor of his motion, say aye.
I've got some discussion. I thought that was already done months ago. That motion.
I think the only place we were at on that motion and what you're talking about is we were still discussing metal poles to wood poles with the Little League. And I think that's the one that we didn't put in that motion.
Yeah, the Johnson Controls included the metal the metal poles.
We weren't sure whether the Little League was going to approve the wood poles, was my remembrance.
There was some concern over Little League's rulings in the Little League book about tournament play. We were advised, and I was going to try to leave this part out of it, and I may still leave parts of it out of it, just to be honest with you. I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm just trying to say that what Little League officials have told our local Little League was, do not worry about the metal poles, but we're not going to sign anything. And I'm going to say it at that and leave it at that.
I got a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Is there any more discussion on this? We need to be looking at our calendar to come up with a date next month, probably.
Might I ask for a Tuesday night? All the basketball games are Thursdays and Mondays.
But let's be looking at, but let's move on to number 4, other business. I think as a gentleman back here, would you, I think Rachel had texted me today, said, was you wanting to discuss or talk about your,
Yeah, my name is Gil Carter. Our nonprofit, Crossroads Mission Care, serves first responders, spirituals, military, and civil first responders, any of them that come across our path. And we recently did an event at the park for area first responders. And Rachel came and saw us part of the event, and she approached me and said, hey, we might want to start discussions about that being a signature event for Hartsville. Now, we did this event in cooperation with the Chamber of Commerce, but it's, you know, it's essentially our nonprofit's event. We do it for our purpose, which is to take care of first responders, because I don't know if this committee knows about it, but the #1 killer of first responders in our nation is job-related stress and job-related consequences of that stress, whether it's alcohol abuse or suicide or things like that. So when we first came up with this event, it was primarily so that first responders could blow off steam in a healthy, positive way. The other purpose for this event was visibility, so that they would find out about us. And the third purpose was some fundraising, because we're a nonprofit. We raise 100% of our own funds. I'm not sure what Ms. Jones, what she had conveyed to you about this. She invited me to come and just start the conversation. I don't know what she had in mind as far as partnering with Parks and Rec. But we're definitely open to it. But we've got a great committee now that for planning next year's. So I'm not sure. She said she had a conversation with you. She's in the hospital with pneumonia, so I'm not sure what the next step is.
I think she, in a text that I think she said maybe make us try to come up with a fall festival like we had tried before with the Parks and Rec, and let this be, you know, be part of it, or something about a fall festival is what she had mentioned in the text there. But she had texted me earlier today. I think Mark Presley then put this, who sponsored this little festival they had over in town here a few weeks ago?
That was Hartsville Strong.
I guess what I'm hearing here, when I first came into this committee, there was conversation about having festivals to raise money for the park. Is that what we're trying to look back at right here? Is that what I'm hearing? Okay, so how would that be? That's what I thought. It's a nonprofit piece that y'all are working with, correct? So I think what we were looking at originally was trying to find a way to raise money, to have some type of festival, some type of piece to raise money for the park is what the original goal of that piece was. How would that be accomplished here with a nonprofit?
I'm not sure it would. Like I said, when Ms. Jones contacted me, she said, would you like to come down and start the conversation? I said, "Oh, we would be glad to, but it would, this is our hometown. We would love to see Hartsville thrive. We'd love to make this a win-win scenario, which this last event it was. But that being said, our first priority are our first responders. So, and frankly, we would love to, we talked to the Chamber of Commerce and we would like to continue doing this for at least 3 years to see how it works. But we can do this anywhere. So I'm not sure what parts.
I definitely was not negating what great efforts went on down there. I want to make sure of that. Just, I think what we're talking about here is two different things. That's the only reason I'm saying that.
Rachel got one.
I think we just need to wait until she's here to explain what she was thinking.
I would ask if you could use the microphones because people watching online can't hear what you're saying.
Shoot, I'm sorry. I think Rachel might have gotten out of wax with the text that you sent the chairman there.
The text that I got, this says, she had talked to Gil and Patty about trying to make their first responder games like a fall festival the town supports. They're coming to the meeting tonight. That's more or less all I got in the text.
We appreciate you for coming and making the point.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I would suggest, and the same thing I tell other groups, put together a proposal of what your ideas are if you want to look at other communities. I think there's other alpha games across the US if you want to look at kind of, no, nothing similar whatsoever. Well, I don't know what you're going to do then, but I put together some kind of proposal of what it is you're asking of us, because we get that all the time. People use the generic phrase, we're looking for support. Well, what does that mean?
Well,
Support how? So just a proposal, put together a proposal, and I would say other places, I'm going to use Nashville because that's one I'm familiar with. They have the National Sports Council. They look at events that come in. They have an economic metric, so they measure the impact of that, whether it's sales taxes, occupancy tax, those kind of things. So they know, okay, we spent X number of money on this. SEC tournament, basketball tournament brings in, what, $125 million? So if they spent, let's say the city of Nashville, the Sports Council spent $10 million marketing and doing everything else, and then turn around and got $125 million impact. Just those kind of things. You know, what is it you're looking for from us? And then I would say we would have to measure, we don't have a hotel, so we're not going to have occupancy tax. So you would have to look at sales tax, those kind of things as to what was the return on that.
Well, just for the record's clarification, we didn't actually approach Parks and Rec to come and do this. Ms. Jones approached us. We didn't have any idea to come to Parks and Rec and talk about it.
In most groups, especially nonprofits, are using the park. I think we've got it in our regulations. We can waive the rental fees and that kind of stuff and work with them that way. I will say I'm very hesitant using county employees for a private organization. I don't want to get into that. I'll be honest with you. I don't want to get into that. So if you got volunteers, if there's ways we can work with you like that, whether it's marketing with a chamber or something like that, I just think it needs to be workshopped a little bit more to kind of see what we're talking about. But yeah, the fall festival or some kind of events, ECD pushes you on that, TVA Economic Development pushes on that. Everybody says you need to have some kind of signature event that you use, where it's Erin and their Irish festival, or Portland and their Strawberry Festival, or Gainsborough and their Poke Salad Festival. But something like that.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Anybody else got any business we need to bring up?
Next meeting, What about Tuesday, October 26th?
That's good with me. Is that good with everybody else? Let's go ahead and schedule our meeting for October the 26th at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, have water utility board at 5. It usually goes until you have the IDB at 7.
That's right.
The 19th is available.
Fall break. Fall break.
Like I said, I'm gonna send it out to them tomorrow. I think it won't take them as long now that they have all the measurements and everything. It'll just be actually getting the price on it and calculating it. So I think it'll go faster this time.
What about
I would
that Monday?
suggest if we could I'm sorry, I'm just gonna throw something out and if you want to do something different. Tentatively set it for the 19th. Let me reach out to them tomorrow and see if they can give me an estimate on what kind of turnaround time they're looking at. And then I can inform the chairman there. If 19th is too soon, then we can look at an alternative. If you want to suggest an alternative date.
I think 3 of these, maybe 4 are out the 19th already. They're sitting here.
That'll be fall break.
That's fall break.
Okay.
Uh,
That's probably why it's nothing on.
Yeah, it's open. What about that Monday, the 25th?
That's county commission that. If you want to do it, I guess you could do it at 6 if you wanted to.
I mean, we're looking at 2 items that are coming to us that we should have them pretty cleaned up by that point.
Please use the microphones.
I'd push that we do that on the 25th, that Monday night at, let's do it 5:45. It gives us an extra 15 minutes. Is that hard to do? 6 is fine.
Is that okay with everybody? The 25th at 6 o'clock? Yes. Huh? All in favor of the 25th at 6 o'clock, say aye. So if I can't be there at 6, y'all can, but I'll try to be there. But I mean, on Mondays is rough for us. All right, public comment, Mr. Gregory, Chris, have any public comments? What about the disc golf? You've heard any more on it?
I've reached out to them a couple of times and asked them where they are, and I haven't received a response.
Do I have a motion to adjourn? Got a motion to adjourn by Mr. Gully and a second by Mr. Clarity. Thank y'all for coming.